Hi, welcome to Coming to New England. My name is Greg Martin, and my guest today is my father. Thank you for coming in today.
You're welcome.
What is your full name?
Thomas Joseph Martin. I was born in Providence on September 28, 1956.
How did your family come to live there?
Well, we're really not sure about my father's family. The family legend came from Ireland. My mother's side, my maternal grandparents came from Portugal, specifically from the Azores.
Cool. What was the house, apartment, wherever you grew up? What was it like?
Well, it was a small bungalow style in Johnston, and at one point when the family was rounded out, there were my parents and 6 children, and my paternal grandfather lived with us as well.
How many rooms and bathrooms did it have?
We had 9 people sharing one bathroom. It was really cozy. Things had to be planned out. And then we had 4 bedrooms, living room, and a kitchen.
Did you have electricity, indoor plumbing?
Yes, this wasn't Little House on the Prairie. It was Johnston, Rhode Island. So.
Great. Well, describe the personalities of your family members.
I think we all have a good sense of humor. I have one brother who's my brother Glenn, in your case Uncle Glenn, who is pretty serious about things. My brother Kevin has a great wit. 2 sisters, and my youngest brother Pat, pretty much the same kind of personalities and interacted well with each other, but a good sense of humor felt the entire family. If you're thin-skinned, it would have been tough to survive.
What is your earliest childhood memory?
That's a good question. I think back to going to school in 1st grade. I do remember my dad standing behind me with his hands on my shoulders telling the 1st grade nun that I should behave in school, and if I didn't, to let him know, and he would take care of me when I got home as well. So I guess it would be kind of a traumatic childhood memory, but really it was a lot of, with 3 brothers and 2 sisters, it was mostly memories of playing together, family dinners. Yeah, I always enjoyed playing outside, especially playing sports outside. I was never one to sit inside and watch television. I was always very active with my brothers, so at different times of the year we'd play baseball throughout the summer, sandlot baseball. We were in the house by 5 o'clock every night. And if you weren't, my dad either whistled for you if you were in the neighborhood, or there was a bell on the front porch, it would ring. So it's kind of like, if you know from psychology, Pavlov's dogs, the bell rang and you ran home for dinner. So we were well conditioned or required to be home. And we all sat around the table, so 9 of us squeezed in around the table. And it was family style. The food was passed along. If you didn't like what was on the table for dinner that night, you still had to sit at the table.
Yeah.
My mom made us still sit there at the table. So eventually, you kind of gave in your pride and you ate what was there.
So how is the world different today than it was when you were growing up?
It's a lot faster paced. And I think that society wants immediate results immediately. Okay, they want things, and they want to tie everything up very quickly. So we've kind of lost patience for stuff. You, for example, in school, you give a kid a test, and they want to know the next day what the results are, or instantaneous communication. We can't go any place without our iPhones and constantly checking to see who's in touch with us and what do we miss. When I was a kid, you had one phone in the house and you shared it. And for a while, it was a party line. So you could pick up the phone and all of a sudden you hear somebody's conversation next door. But, then it was a big thrill to get a private line. But if you were out and somebody called and left a message, when you were out, you didn't worry about it. When you got home, you took the message from, it wasn't an answering machine, it was someone else in the house took the message for you. So it wasn't that immediacy, there wasn't that, I have to do things right now and get it done. And so you could say that life was a little bit slower paced in one respect.
What were your favorite songs and music growing up?
Well, I liked rock and roll, traditional rock and roll, especially the Beatles, Rolling Stones, a little bit of Led Zeppelin, the Moody Blues. So kind of all I have to do is probably listen to your play tracks because you tend to like the same music that I do.
Do you remember any fads or fashion trends from your youth?
All you have to do is look back in the 60s
Yeah.
video and books and so forth. Plaid pants, bell bottoms. You brought back the type of hairstyle that I had then. Kind of long hair, kind of flashy colors and so forth. You know, jeans.
What is your profession, and how did you come to choose it?
Well, I'm in the field of education. I'm the vice principal of student life at LaSalle Academy here in Providence. I started off as a history teacher after I got my bachelor's degree at St. Pat's in North Providence, an all-girls school. I was there for 1 year, and then I went to my alma mater, Our Lady of Providence, where I taught for 9 years until it closed. I think at some point in high school I decided I got very interested. I always enjoyed school. I had some very good teachers both in grammar school, high school, and some excellent professors in college. And I think that helped to inspire me to go into the field of teaching. And I enjoyed the classroom a great deal. It was always fun. I liked teaching history. I liked studying history. And it's been a very rewarding profession.
So I know you've talked about this with me a lot, but what world events had the most impact on you while you were growing up? And did any of them affect you personally or your family?
I would say the single event that still sticks out of my mind to this day that really inspired my love and interest in history was the assassination of President John Kennedy on November 22nd of 1963. And at the time, I was in the second grade. Still remember we were in art class with Sister St. Richard, and we were doing little poems with a picture of a turkey on the side, and they put on the intercom in the school system the broadcast from the news bulletin that the president had been shot.
In downtown Dallas, President Kennedy was shot today just as his motorcade left downtown Dallas. Mrs. Kennedy jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She cried, "Oh no." Now,
you have to understand that being in a Catholic school, Kennedy being the first successful Catholic candidate for the presidency, that there was a real connection. And so the moment that they announced that he had died.
The flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
The nun Sister St. Richard was hanging the poems that we had written on. She was hanging them above the chalkboard in the front of the room, and when they announced the bulletin that the president had expired, she dropped the thing that she was hanging up and turned around, and she was, I don't think I've ever seen a person as white in her complexion and her appearance. And immediately, the nuns all had rosary beads on the side, and immediately she began to start offering prayers. But that entire weekend left an impact because it was on television. All weekend long, right through to the assassination, eventually, or the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald on live television on that Sunday, to the president's funeral on Monday the 25th. But it was just around the clock. That had a massive impact on American society because it changed the way television news was presented. There became that immediate coverage thing that we still do to this day. And the other event I think that had an impact was, as I was growing up as a kid, I was a newspaper boy, and the Vietnam War. And so as you delivered the newspaper every day, you looked on the front page, and it was just about every single day was a headline story about the Vietnam War with photographs. Once a week, they used to put the body count, believe it or not, from the war. How many casualties how many casualties there were from the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. So those two things, one, they're obviously related events because they occurred within the same decade. But they had, I think, a real big impact. I know I wanted to read as much as I could about things. Delivering the newspaper and then reading it every day really kind of fostered a love for reading, which I still, have to this day. I try to read about a half an hour every night before I go to sleep. But you know, it shaped your outlook towards government. It shaped your outlook towards the American society, international relations, love of history, and so forth. And of course, the war affected American society from top to bottom.
So how would you define the American dream then?
Well, I think the American dream it's changed, you know, from a historical point of view. We'll say that, you know, one time for the earliest white settlers coming to America, it was the acquisition of land and a chance to, you know, create your own life. And I think we still have some of that today. I think the American dream really is that people want the opportunity to fulfill their lives, to accomplish as much as they can, but to the best of their ability. For some people, it may be more financial as well, and the acquisition of different material possessions and so forth. But I think basically the dream has always been to fulfill all the possibility that you have, all your potential, by working hard and at least having the opportunity to do so.
Well, going off of your history experience, what is the biggest lesson history has to teach us?
The biggest lesson is that things are constantly changing, constantly in flux, but there are also, you know, they say history repeats itself, which is a bit of an inaccuracy in the sense that it never repeats itself exactly. The circumstances do not reoccur exactly the same. There are parallels and analogies that you can see, but there's nothing that's going to exactly change. So you can learn from things that have happened in the past to make preparations and adjustments for what is happening now and what will happen in the future.
So flashing forward a bit, why did you choose your children's names?
Well, first of all, being a school teacher, you eliminated names of kids who you thought about that were pains in the classroom.
Yeah.
So you took those right off the table. But I really, you know, it was just we liked the sound of Lindsay Elizabeth, and for yours, we liked the sound of Gregory as a strong name, and then incorporated my first name as your middle name. And that's really how we came to the agreement about naming you and your sister.
Cool. What was your proudest moment as a parent?
I think that's a transitional question in the sense that it changes as your children get older. Certainly, obviously, to see them graduate from high school and go on to college, and then Lindsay's made it. Hopefully, you will graduate from Rhode Island College and you know, go on to find some happiness and success. But there are other little moments that you go through. So it's hard to really pin down one specific, you know, moment.
Okay, so what accomplishments are you most proud of in your life so far?
Well, I think the fact that I've been able to make a successful career, you know, personal career in education. This is my 38th year in education, secondary education. So that would be, you know, an accomplishment career-wise. I think an accomplishment is trying to be, or working best as I can to be a good father to you and Lindsay, and getting you to be successful adults.
If you had one message you hope would be spread to the world, what would it be?
I think that we need to become more tolerant and understanding and open with each other. I think a lot of our problems in the world today is that, you know, we want to try to put people into different categories and keep them there and so forth. But I think we need to respect one another, to be content with yourself and in what you're doing. And I would say not to be overly concerned about, you know, I think in American society so many people are worried about how much money and material goods that they can accumulate. And as I tell kids in school all the time, when they're thinking about what they want to study in college and where they want to go on a career path, I like to tell them is don't worry about the money. You know, do something that you are going to be comfortable with and happy with. And then the money and everything else will fall into place afterwards. Friendships that you build up over your lifetime, family relationships and so forth. There is nothing, in my opinion, that can replace those things in your life. So I would say just find something that you really want to do and go for it.